I boarded the plane last, through the door at the rear. Unlike the last one, this was a seriously tiny plane. 5 rows with 1 seat on each side, except for the last row where there were 3 seats together. I spotted the one empty spot in the first row behind the cockpit, separated from the cabin only by a tatty mauve curtain. I was relieved to get out of the hot island sun, but the claustrophobic cabin offered no protection from the thick, humid air. So I made my way up the aisle and sat down, and then I fished around for the seatbelt. I found one half, but the other side was missing the clasp. I looked around nervously and observed that no one else seemed to have had a seatbelt on at all, so I just sat there holding the unlatched belt in my hand. Then the pilot, a young local guy in his 20s with his uniform shirt unbuttoned a little too far, arrived and he shut the passenger door from the outside. Then went around, climbed into the cockpit through a separate door. He settled in quickly, revved the engines loudly, and the plane jerked into motion. No announcements, no illuminated seatbelt sign, nothing. After a short bit of high-speed taxiing, the pilot opened the throttle and we accelerated quickly. And in a moment, we were off, into the air, wobbly accelerating through the thermals rising over the warm Caribbean. I grabbed the seat firmly with both hands and looked out the window as we soared up over the crystal blue water. We banked hard to the left, and I watched the tiny strip of beach on St. Martin disappear below us. I closed my eyes and fought to keep my stomach below my throat. The pilot swiveled around in his chair and yelled to us over the considerable noise of the plane. "We get some weather now. No worries, just a little bumpy. We be safe on the ground in 15 minutes. He seemed to recognize the woman sitting behind me and winked at her with a smile. Almost immediately, the plane began quivering and jerking in this unnatural horizontal motion. I looked out the window at the endless blue of the ocean and the continuous hue of the sky, and I searched for the line where they met out at the distant horizon. There were a few thunderheads visible ahead of us. I wondered how close we were to the Bermuda Triangle. Still, despite the turbulence, this strange calm overtook me. If this little plane with its broken seatbelts and distracted pilot did me in, no one could fault me. At that moment, I wasn't living on my own behalf. I was taking care of a duty so much older and bigger than me. I was honoring my father, honoring this ancient tradition, older than God, as old as humankind itself. No matter what happens, I felt clean, justified, worthy. Just then we hit a little air pocket and seemed to fall 100 feet in an instant. I blurted out aloud, "Whoa!" The rest of the passengers remained silent. And I smiled to myself. Maybe somehow it was all going to be okay. And in a few minutes, we swooped down hard, banked left and then right, and I saw we were heading directly towards a volcano sticking out of the ocean, St. Eustatius. The pilot maneuvered deftly, cutting the engines to a quiet hum a moment before we gently touched down on the tiny runway. And once we were on the ground, he turned around to the cabin and smiled and winked again at the woman behind me. "We at Statia now," he said. "May you all have a meaningful stay."